The stories we tell ourselves have an uncanny ability to survive the rise and fall of entire civilizations, traversing thousands of years to find new life in the modern world. For centuries, the foundational epics of Western literature have served as the ultimate canvas for human emotion, capturing the essence of betrayal, warfare, honor, and the agonizing journey toward home. When a contemporary storyteller decides to look back into the deepest mists of antiquity, they are not merely adapting a text. They are stepping into a sacred arena where every line, every character, and every thematic choice is guarded by generations of scholars, enthusiasts, and protective audiences. Cinema has always been drawn to these monumental narratives, using the grand scale of the silver screen to breathe life into ancient warriors, gods, and tragedies that were once whispered around communal fires. Yet, this bridge between the ancient world and modern pop culture is incredibly fragile, standing at the volatile intersection of creative reinterpretation and historical reverence. In an era dominated by instantaneous digital feedback, the relationship between an artist, their source material, and the collective memory of the public has never been more scrutinized. Proving that even the oldest tales can ignite the most intense modern fires, the anticipation surrounding a major cinematic event often begins long before the lights dim in the theater. Fueled by the reputation of visionary directors who dare to reshape classical narratives for a contemporary global audience. When a filmmaker known for intricate storytelling, structural ambition, and grand visual spectacles decides to tackle the quintessential epic of human wandering and survival, the expectations are naturally astronomical. The upcoming cinematic adaptation of the Odyssey has promised to be exactly that kind of cultural milestone, a sweeping exploration of conflict and its devastating aftermath that seeks to re-examine the foundational myths we take for granted. To bring such a massive vision to fruition, a director must assemble a cast capable of carrying the psychological weight of legendary figures whose names have echoed through the ages. The promotional journey for such a monumental project is a complex, high-stakes ritual, requiring actors to navigate a relentless gauntlet of media appearances, interviews, and public discussions where every single word is weighed, analyzed, and broadcasted to millions of waiting fans across the globe. It is a delicate dance where the boundary between promoting an artistic piece of entertainment and entering a broader cultural debate can dissolve in a single afternoon. At the center of this burgeoning cinematic storm is a highly celebrated actress whose career has been defined by powerful, transformative performances and an undeniable artistic intellect. With an elite background rooted in prestigious dramatic institutions, including a Master of Fine Arts from the world-renowned Yale School of Drama, she has long been viewed as a performer who approaches her craft with profound depth, meticulous research, and a keen awareness of narrative structure. In this ambitious new interpretation of the ancient Greek tradition, she takes on a dual burden of immense dramatic proportions, portraying both the legendary Helen of Troy, whose unparalleled beauty allegedly launched 1,000 ships, and her formidable sister Clytemnestra, a character synonymous with betrayal and vengeance. To stay deeply informed on how this massive cinematic event unfolds and to explore the shifting dynamics of modern Hollywood and classical storytelling, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel as we dive deeper into the unfolding narrative. This particular casting choice was designed to challenge traditional perceptions, offering an opportunity to explore the inner lives of women who have often been relegated to the margins of classical history, existing primarily as symbols or catalysts for male ambition rather than complex individuals with their own sovereign agency. However, the journey from the quiet reverence of the rehearsal room to the hypercritical spotlight of the international press tour is rarely smooth, and even the most accomplished artists can find themselves caught in a sudden, unexpected tempest of public opinion. During a recent promotional interview on a popular digital platform, what was intended to be a routine reflection on character development and creative intention quickly transformed into a polarizing cultural flashpoint. When asked a provocative question about what she would say to the ancient author of the epic if given the chance to meet him today, the actress delivered a confident, sharp critique that challenged the very structure of the timeless text, questioning the distribution of focus and attention within the classical narrative. The delivery of the comment, marked by an unmistakable air of certainty and a casual defiance, immediately resonated across the digital landscape, but not in the way the film's promotional team might have hoped. Within hours, the initial ripple of curiosity turned into a tidal wave of intense public scrutiny, As social media networks ignited with fierce debates regarding the boundaries of artistic criticism, the value of classical education, and the perceived arrogance of modern Hollywood interpreting ancient masters, setting the stage for a spectacular clash of perspectives that threatens to overshadow the impending premiere of the film itself. The digital landscape can be an unforgiving crucible where a single sentence spoken during a promotional junket can completely alter the narrative surrounding a multi-million-dollar cinematic masterpiece. As the press tour for Christopher Nolan's highly anticipated film, The Odyssey, swept through the media, 43-year-old actress Lupita Nyong'o found herself at the absolute epicenter of a massive and rapidly escalating public relations crisis. The controversy erupted during an appearance on the popular YouTube channel Jake's Takes, a platform known for its engaging and often deeply reflective celebrity interviews. When the interviewer posed a hypothetical scenario, asking what the Academy Award-winning actress would say to the ancient Greek poet Homer if she had the chance to meet him today, Nyong'o did not offer a traditional, reverent response. Instead, she leaned into the camera, cocked her head slightly to the side with an air of absolute confidence, and delivered a sharp, rhetorical challenge directed at the ancient author. She asked how Homer felt about the minimal screen time allocated to the female characters in his epic poems, considering how little narrative space he chose to spend with them, concluding her thought with a pointed, confrontational phrase. Asking him if he remembered them at all, this specific moment, delivered with a mix of modern assertiveness and theatrical poise, immediately struck a discordant chord with a vast segment of the online audience. Rather than being celebrated for a bold, progressive critique of a classic text, Nyong'o was met with a tidal wave of intense backlash, mockery, and outright hostility across multiple social media platforms. The reaction was swift and merciless, with critics taking immediate aim at what they perceived as a profound lack of historical context and an entitlement characteristic of modern celebrity culture. On various digital forums, users began dissecting the clip, with one prominent commentator labeling her snarky reply as an attitude straight out of a dystopian comedy where ignorance is celebrated as intellect. The primary grievance among those pushing back against her statement was the apparent absurdity of applying 21st-century Hollywood industry terminology, such as screen time, to an ancient oral tradition that was composed nearly 3,000 years ago. For many literary purists and casual observers alike, the critique felt less like a nuanced artistic observation and more like a superficial, performative dismissal of one of the foundational pillars of world literature. The scrutiny quickly intensified as internet sleuths began digging into the actress's past promotional interviews, uncovering details that added substantial fuel to the growing digital fire. The central point of contention became Nyong'o's educational background contrasted with her self-admitted unfamiliarity with the source material prior to landing the coveted roles of Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra. Critics were quick to point out that the actress holds a prestigious Master of Fine Arts degree from the Yale School of Drama, an elite institution widely regarded as one of the finest theatrical training grounds in the world. On social media platforms like X, formerly known as Twitter, users expressed profound disbelief that an Ivy League graduate with an advanced degree in the dramatic arts could possess no prior knowledge of the Homeric epics. One highly shared post griped that Yale was essentially turning into an incredibly expensive community college, arguing that a fundamental understanding of Western drama should be a prerequisite for anyone emerging from such a celebrated program. This revelation transformed the debate from a simple disagreement over an interview comment into a broader, more aggressive critique of the modern elite educational system and its perceived failure to preserve classical literacy. To back up these criticisms, users pointed directly to an Elle magazine cover story published in May, where Nyong'o herself candidly confessed the extent of her initial ignorance regarding the ancient text. In that interview, she openly admitted that she went into her initial meetings with director Christopher Nolan quite blind, having absolutely no real idea what The Odyssey even was. She recalled her internal panic upon realizing her lack of knowledge, describing it as a moment where she thought to herself that she did not know the first thing about the project. While she went on to explain that she immediately embarked on an intensive crash course, picking up the books and reading them cover to cover to educate herself on Greek mythology for the sake of the film, the public remained largely unforgiving. For her detractors, the confession was not a sign of admirable honesty or dedication to her craft, but rather definitive proof that she was fundamentally unqualified to lecture an ancient master on narrative structure. The narrative circulating online quickly shifted to depict her as someone operating entirely within an insulated bubble of privilege. Insulated from the foundational historical knowledge shared by the general public, the online outrage found a highly coordinated hub on an X thread posted by the popular pop culture commentary account Nerdrotics, where thousands of disgruntled film fans gathered to voice their displeasure. The commentary within this thread was exceptionally biting, with users analyzing not just the words Nyong'o spoke, but the cultural mindset they believed her behavior represented. One user wrote about the silver screen siren, claiming that she mistakenly thinks it is still 16, a period they associated with a time when the entire public would unconditionally stand up, clap, and celebrate such comments as empowering. Another commenter echoed this sentiment, asserting that the actress is living in a specific ideological bubble that separates her from any genuine understanding of world history, leading her to make statements that alienate traditional audiences. The thread became a lightning rod for broader cultural grievances, with participants arguing that high-profile figures in Hollywood are completely out of touch with the values and expectations of ordinary moviegoers. Someone else agreed, stating that these individuals simply do not realize that the vast majority of the population is actively opposed to having modern social agendas retroactively forced onto ancient historical and mythological narratives as the digital storm continued to gather strength. A compelling and highly volatile comparison began to emerge across social media discussions, linking Nyong'o's current predicament to one of the most infamous public relations disasters in recent cinematic history. Multiple commentators began highlighting the striking similarities between this incident and the controversial promotional tour carried out by actress Rachel Zegler for the live-action adaptation of Snow White. Zegler's press tour had been severely marred by intense public backlash after she repeatedly criticized the original 1937 Disney animated cartoon, famously calling it extremely dated and suggesting that the classic story was no longer relevant to modern audiences. The comparison was instantaneous, with one social media user bluntly claiming that this situation has distinct Snow White vibes, while another explicitly stated that Lupita just got her very own Zegler moment. This comparison was particularly damaging, as Zegler's comments had previously resulted in widespread boycotts and a massive wave of negative publicity that completely overshadowed the artistic merits of her project. By linking Nyong'o to that specific controversy, critics were effectively signaling that her comments had crossed a line from harmless press tour banter into a territory that could actively harm the commercial prospects of Christopher Nolan's new film. The tangible impact of this growing resentment quickly manifested as fans began declaring their intentions to completely boycott the film upon its imminent release. For a massive studio production like The Odyssey, which relies heavily on drawing in both casual moviegoers and dedicated fans of classical's history, these declarations represented a significant threat to its box office potential. One deeply upset fan vowed on social media that they would absolutely refuse to see the movie when it arrives in theaters, writing with dramatic emphasis that this would be the hardest they had ever actively avoided watching a motion picture in their entire life. The sentiment began to spread among film enthusiasts who felt that the promotional campaign was focusing far too much on modern ideological critiques rather than honoring the timeless, tragic grandeur of Homer's original vision. The mounting tension left the entire promotional campaign in a precarious position, caught between the director's serious artistic intentions and a lead actress who had accidentally alienated the very audience the studio needed to attract. To truly understand the depth of this cultural divide, one must look closely at how the creative team behind this ambitious adaptation attempted to balance the rigorous demands of classical literature with the realities of modern filmmaking. In a separate revealing interview with media personality Lauren Veneziani on the DC Film Girl platform, Lupita Nyong'o sought to clarify the foundational goals of the production, offering a more analytical perspective on what the director aimed to achieve. She explained that Christopher Nolan was fundamentally interested in investigating the true agonizing cost of war, a theme that resonates deeply across both the Iliad and the Odyssey. Nyong'o pointed out that when one reads these ancient texts, very little time is spent exploring the internal worlds and unique perspectives of the women caught in the crossfire of these massive conflicts. She noted that the original epics are undeniably told from a very masculine side of things, focusing heavily on the exploits, triumphs, and tragedies of male warriors on the battlefield. According to the actress, this new cinematic interpretation intentionally takes the time to deeply consider the narrative from the female perspective, allowing the audience to witness exactly how the devastating 10-year conflict affected both Helen of Troy and her sister, Clytemnestra. This artistic objective highlights a fascinating tension that often arises when a modern filmmaker attempts to breathe new life into a text that has been studied, debated, and revered for millennia. In her previous conversations during the promotional tour, specifically within the highly publicized Elle profile, Nyong'o vigorously defended the creative choices made by Nolan, particularly regarding her own casting as the legendary Helen of Troy. She reminded readers and critics alike that Homer's epic is, at its core, a mythological story rather than a rigid historical account, meaning it possesses an inherent flexibility that allows for fresh interpretation. In a particularly striking reflection on the nature of her craft, she stated that an actor cannot simply perform beauty on screen, emphasizing that she desperately wanted to discover who this legendary character truly was beneath the surface of her myth. She pushed the conversation further, asking what lies beyond physical beauty and superficial looks, noting that the great joy and challenge of working with such a well-known text is that it has already been subjected to endless cycles of study, interpretation, and artistic derivation throughout human history. For an actor tasked with embodying figures of such mythic proportions, the preparation process can easily become overwhelming. Given the sheer volume of academic analysis that exists surrounding the Trojan War and its aftermath, Nyong'o acknowledged this reality, stating that while historical and literary research could easily become endless, the unique benefit of working with a visionary writer and director like Nolan is that the entire emotional and narrative blueprint is already masterfully laid out on the written page. She emphasized that the true investigation for an actor always starts with the specific pages they are given, and that she chose to base her entire performance on the script Nolan meticulously crafted. The Black Panther star explicitly reiterated her absolute support for the director's creative intentions and the specific grounded version of the story he set out to tell to contemporary audiences. This dedication to Nolan's singular vision underscores the immense collaborative effort required to translate ancient oral poetry into a coherent, visually arresting cinematic experience that satisfies both the intellect and the imagination. The journey of these two mythological sisters, Helen and Clytemnestra, represents one of the most complex and tragic threads in the entire tapestry of Greek mythology, making their expanded roles in this new film highly significant. Historically, Helen has been viewed primarily as an object of desire, a prize to be won, and the ultimate catalyst for an international war, while her sister Clytemnestra has often been vilified as the quintessential vengeful wife who murdered her husband Agamemnon upon his triumphant return from Troy. By bringing these two powerful narratives together through a single actress, the film attempts to create a profound psychological mirror, exploring how the same global catastrophe fractured the lives of two women from the same royal household in vastly different ways. This narrative choice elevates the film beyond a simple action spectacle, transforming it into a somber meditation on grief, survival, and the heavy price that women have historically paid for the ambitions and conflicts of men. It is this specific dramatic depth that the production team hoped would resonate with modern filmgoers, offering a compelling reason to revisit a story that many feel they already know completely, as the highly anticipated release date of July 17 rapidly approaches. The surrounding controversy serves as a stark reminder of the immense pressures and cultural expectations that define the modern cinematic landscape. The fierce backlash against Nyong'o's interview comments illustrates how protective audiences can be over classical literature, viewing any perceived irreverence or modern political framing as an unwelcome intrusion upon timeless art. Yet, it also highlights the ongoing necessary dialogue between the past and the present, as contemporary artists continue to look toward ancient myths to find meaning, reflection, and universal truths that still apply to the human condition today. Christopher Nolan's adaptation of the Odyssey stands at the very center of this fascinating cultural crossroads, daring to challenge traditional narrative boundaries while attempting to deliver the grand, immersive spectacle that audiences have come to expect from his work. Whether the film will succeed in uniting these disparate perspectives and overcoming the pre-release skepticism remains to be seen, but it has undeniably succeeded in reigniting a passionate global conversation about the power, ownership, an enduring legacy of our oldest stories. Ultimately, the true test of any artistic endeavor occurs when the house lights go down and the public finally has the opportunity to judge the work on its own standalone merits, free from the noise of social media controversies and press tour missteps. The upcoming premiere will determine whether the audience can separate the casual, confident remarks of a lead actress from the grand, cinematic vision of an acclaimed director who has dedicated years to mastering the craft of epic storytelling. The enduring power of Homer's original creation lies in its ability to withstand countless reinterpretations over thousands of years, proving that these characters and their struggles are robust enough to survive any modern debate. As theaters prepare to welcome audiences for this monumental cinematic event, the world watches to see if this new interpretation will be remembered as a bold, definitive masterpiece that successfully bridged the gap between antiquity and the modern world, or if it will simply serve as a cautionary tale about the volatile intersection of celebrity culture, modern ideology, and classical reverence.